I have a theory, and I'm pretty sure that I'm right about this. Those 180 gram records, I feel, are more prone to static. Now, I've always had, admittedly, a very odd relationship with 180 gram records. And I think it probably stems back to some of the claims that come with them. Some of the claims that you see on the hype stickers and the marketing materials and the ads, things like this. They are less prone to warping. They are more resistant to stylus wear. They have better sound playback. They have improved bass response. They also have improved stability and resonance. There are other claims, of course, but most of them are geared to the audiophile community. But they are also meant to entice the average record buyer and get them to spend a little bit more on the record, because why not? They're supposed to sound better, right?
Go ahead, prove it, prove it, prove it. Go ahead.
Now, of all of the claims that you'll hear, in some of that marketing and also in the hype stickers, the only one I can probably get behind is the one that talks about improved stability. That's a really slim benefit when you consider the fact that most of those other claims that I listed a couple moments ago, they're all just bunk. They really are. And it is fair to say, and this is not an exaggeration, that 25% of the records I buy that are 180 gram records have a slight warp. 25%. As for my concession that they might, sit a little bit better on the platter, well, that's really what a record weight or a record clamp is for. But I've noticed something recently that has surprised me and put me on a mission to try to figure this thing out. And that is 180 gram records are more prone to static. There, I've said it. So it's out there. And I stand by it. But do I have proof of that? Well, I don't have scientific proof. Now, this is all anecdotal. Again, this is my opinion. But more often than not, when I pick up a 180 gram record, when I pick it up off of the platter, it's loaded with static. That does not happen with my normal records. And when I say normal, I'm talking about those that are not 180 grams or more. Now, how do I know this to be the case? Well, for one, you can hear the static when you pick it up. And also, the hairs on my arm will react to it if it's close to the record when I pick it up. And on a couple of occasions, and this shocked me because it's never happened before, but the record actually lifted the mat with it. And I have a hybrid cork rubber mat. That shouldn't happen, and it's never happened before. So the big question is why? Why would a thicker record be more prone to static? So I did what I always did. I grabbed my torch and I ventured down the dark, dark rabbit hole of research. Surely this had to be documented somewhere. Nope. At least not definitively. There are some theories, and they do make sense. One has to do with the chemical composition of the PVC used. Now, it makes sense, but I'm fairly confident that those pressing plants that are pressing both 180 gram records and 140 gram records, they're using the exact same PVC pellets. So I'm not sure I'm on board with the theory that it's all in the PVC itself, the chemicals used itself, because of the fact, like I said, I don't see this happening with those thinner records. Now, I do want to add that the chemical composition of the PVC really does matter. And a good example of this are the old Japanese pressings from, say, the 70s. They were extremely quiet, and it has everything to do with the formula that was used. So let's assume that the formulation of the PVC pellets is not to blame. I'm also going to dismiss environmental factors. Now, it is true that a drier climate or drier environment will introduce more static. Well, here where I live, it doesn't change a whole lot, especially in my house. Now, again, I'm not having this issue with any thinner records, only the 180 gram records. So I'm going to also toss out environmental factors. Now, what about the platter mat? Now, like I said earlier, I use a hybrid cork and rubber mat, and it's supposed to help with vibration, grip, and also static. So I'm going to toss that one out as well as being a reason. So where does this leave us? Well, like I said, I'm not going to blame the PVC chemical composition. I'm not going to blame the environment of the vinyl room that I listen in, and I'm not going to blame the platter mat. And you know what? I'm not going to blame the pressing plant either, because I go through the exact same process whenever I bring a record home. I clean it the exact same way, and it's a wet clean, no matter if it's a new record or a used record. And before every playback, or before I play a record, I always zap it with my Zerostat. Yes, I know I'm weird. So where am I going to place the blame? Well, I'm going to use the exact same reason that those record companies are pushing the 180 gram records on audiophiles and also on the buying public. That reason? Because they are thicker. It's often the case that the simplest, most obvious reason is usually the one.
My dear Watson, I expected even you to see through that trick.
Now, hear me out. 180 gram records have more surface area. And I'm not talking about, the top, the surface area of the diameter. I'm talking about their total surface area because they're thicker. They just have to have more surface. And because they are thicker, there is more chances for static to accumulate. More surface area introduces greater potential for static buildup. I had a hard time saying that, and I actually had to say that line 5 times. And it makes sense if you think about it. The only difference is the actual physical measurements of the record. Every record is going to accumulate some static during playback. 180 more so. You can't escape it. That's just the way it is. A thicker record has more opportunity for static. It's gotten to the point where I feel like I have to, zap the 180 gram records with my Zerostat before even putting it back in its anti-static sleeve. And it's not that the anti-static sleeve, as you know, does not remove static. It just helps reduce it because of the contact between the record and the sleeve itself. Now I realize I'm taking some liberties here, and this isn't a scientific experiment to figure out exactly how much static is present on a 180 gram record as opposed to a thinner record. But I do love to dump on 180 gram records if you haven't noticed. In my humble opinion, a true audiophile package would not be pressed on a 180 gram record. It would be pressed on thinner records, 140 gram records say, and it would be pressed on 2 records instead of 1. Forget a thicker record and just give the music more space to breathe. And that means a wider groove. And you get the wider groove with less songs per side. Now, I know there are many opinions out there about this, and I'd love to hear every single one of them. The conversations and the comments here are the highlights of my day. So what do you think about all of this? Is this all in my head or all in the hair on my arms? I'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to click like and subscribe, comment below. And as always, until next time, thank you for being here, and please take care of yourself. Oh, and enjoy your records.